Hey, good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. It's Beth Caldwell, and I'm here with your Monday morning mastermind and a funny story today. I have, I make a lot of my money going into corporations and companies and organizations that have big problems and they need to have really tough conversations. And they love to hire me because I'm a truth teller and I just come into the room and say what's going on and throw everything on the table, and then we have to fix it. And that's, I guess, a gift. It's something that a lot of people avoid, telling the truth or facing a conflict. And I've been seeing a lot of people avoiding conflict this week. And I have never seen a problem or a situation get any better when we pretend like it isn't happening, right? It always gets worse. And it reminded me of a funny story that I want to share with you from years ago when I was first starting my business. Back then, I believed everyone and everything, and I said yes to everyone and everything. And so one day I got a phone call from an acquaintance who invited me to come into downtown Pittsburgh to go to lunch with her and some executives from her company, 3 men that were in from out of town, and they were very interested in doing business with me. And I was so excited. It was not a great idea for me to go downtown in the middle of my day. Being a single mom and having a business, that would mean that I'd have to work late or work over the weekend to make up for the lost time. But at that time, I was willing to take a big chunk out of my day and drive downtown and pay a ton of money for parking in order to make a new connection. And that's what I did. So I get my car, I go downtown, I park in a very expensive parking garage, and I go to the restaurant and I get a phone call. We're running a little bit late. 45 minutes later, they showed up and they were starving. So it was her and 3 men, and they sat down at the table, and it was a Mexican restaurant. They start eating chips and salsa. These guys are just starving. They've traveled in from out of town. Travel things made them late, totally understandable. And the mom in me, I'm seeing this salsa go flying all over the table. And I take my napkin and I wipe up the salsa off the table because I don't want to get my hands in it or my elbows in it or anything. So I wipe it up and don't think anything about it. And we have this wonderful, interesting, I wouldn't say wonderful, a long and interesting conversation where in reality, they didn't want to hire me. They wanted me to pay thousands of dollars and join their multi-level marketing organization. So I was misled. It was a lesson that I had to learn, and I don't make those mistakes anymore. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst of it was the men left, and I noticed about at some point during the meal when we were talking and we leaned in like this, I noticed everybody had a funny look on their face. But I didn't know what was going on. I felt like maybe there was something going on between, the 4 of them. So eventually the guys take off, and my colleague and I are here, and she says, let me walk you to your car. And she's picking my brain the whole way, getting advice the whole way, 4 or 5 blocks to my car, walks me to my car, and we get to my car, and she puts her hand on my arms and she says, Beth, I would feel awful if I didn't tell you this. You have salsa all over your face, kind of sticky. And I was horrified. What had happened was I took my napkin and wiped up that salsa and then apparently forgot that I did it and wiped my face after I ate. And I had salsa all over my face. And she tells me 25 minutes after the meeting's over, what? Now, why did she do that? Well, the reason why she did that is because it was awkward. She didn't really know how to say to me in front of a group of people, hey, there's like a little salsa there, right? It was uncomfortable. They didn't want me to be embarrassed, so they said nothing. Now, let's go back. What if they had said something? I would have been embarrassed for sure. I would have went to the ladies' room, cleaned up my face, apologized, been horrified. But I wouldn't have been sat through an hour lunch with salsa on my face, right? So that, when she did tell me, right, of course I wasn't angry at her. I thanked her for letting me know. but I really wasn't anxious to go out to lunch again with her, right? Especially for what she had done. And this is what happens when we ignore problems, right? I was a little angry at her for not telling me an hour before. And gosh, it's been years and I'm still a little irritated about it and a little bit embarrassed about it. But you know, the embarrassment of having to wipe your face off lasts for just a moment. And then eventually we laugh about it. Yet, how much conflict? Let's go back to her. She was in conflict for more than an hour. Should I tell her? Shouldn't I tell her? What if she gets worried? What if she gets angry? What if I embarrass her? All of that stuff was going through her head the whole time. And as soon as she would have said it, the situation would have been over. We do this all the time in our lives, in our home, in the community, and at work. We don't want to make somebody uncomfortable. We don't want to make somebody embarrassed. Sometimes we avoid tricky or difficult conversations for days, weeks, months, sometimes even years, because we just don't want to have that moment of awkward or uncomfortableness. But you know what? Most of the time, it's just a moment. I was reading some research that said your worst emotion, the worst news that you can get, will take you 90 seconds to recover from. And in that time, you begin to process grief, you process your shock, whatever the feeling is. And then your brain starts to go, okay, how are we going to cope with this? Okay. So for a little thing like you have salsa on your face, that's just a few seconds. Like, oh, I better go to the ladies' room and wipe myself off, right? Or you've lost your job. Yeah. That's a little bit worse than you have salsa on your face. Okay. You're laid off. You've lost your job. We've made a decision. I don't want to live with you anymore. Whatever it is, those decisions, hearing that kind of noise takes a little bit more than 5 seconds before your brain kicks in and goes, okay, here's our plan, right? So the most awkwardness you're going to experience by having a difficult conversation is 90 seconds at the beginning. And most of the time at work, it's 10 seconds, okay? So do me a favor this week, have an awkward conversation and let me know how it goes. I'm Beth Caldwell here with you Monday morning, tips for women in life and business because we just don't separate the two. Have a great week.